Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. I am stoked to be here.
Awesome. So, can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My life has been kind of a series of confusing turns. My name's Ryan Kelly. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I lived there for 18 years. Then I went to college in Grand Rapids, Michigan for 4. I studied business and advertising and international relations with a concentration on counterterror, civil war, and ethnic conflict. And you know how those two go naturally together. You'd be surprised, actually. Weirdly enough, the same like marketing strategies that Coke uses, ISIS was using at the time, which was turns out, just very effective marketing.
Yeah.
After that, moved out to Los Angeles, was a personal assistant, then worked in accounting very briefly for Warner Brothers, and then started working at Disneyland because that's what you do when you have these stories: is you don spandex and pretend to be a teenager and be Spider-Man. So that's what I did after that. While I was at Disney, they had something called the Disney Aspire program, and they paid 100% for like education, including my master's degree in Homeland Security, which was awesome. And after that, I started doing pretty well on social media. I created a TikTok. I started going by Youth Pastor Ryan, not because I'm a youth pastor. I just look like one. It's unfortunate for everyone involved. And after that, I just kind of kept going with social media. And then it was until I graduated with my master's degree in 2020. And then after that, I moved back home to Missouri in 2023. So just actually a couple months ago. And when I was moving back home, I got scammed.
Mm.
And I was going through a shipping company that set me up with a scammer. They didn't mean to. They're a broker. And then after that, they took my $712.50. And unfortunately for them, I'm a full-time stand-up comedian. So that means I've got a lot of free time. And here we go. So by the end of the day, I had their ID, I had their home address, I had their IP address, I had everything you'd need. I knew which car they drove. And so I called their local FBI office and I was like, hey, can you guys help me out with this? And it's funny because the FBI agent was like, why do you have all this information? And I go, we're crazy, I know. And then he goes, can you explain what happened? And I told him the scam, and he goes, dude, I just got hit by that same scam too. And I was like,
Oh.
no, I don't want it. Also, that's a little disheartening when you're like, the guys who catch these also got hit by the scam, but yeah. And so they ended up getting the broker ended up giving me the money back, but I posted about this whole story on social media. And at the time I still had a pretty good following. But these videos really blew up because it was shocking to me how many people were just like, yes, I've been scammed. Same thing. This has happened to me. This is everything. And what was crazy about it is actually, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. That was probably a little longer, about a month ago now. I had an ex-military guy who's just getting out of the service reach out to me. He's like, hey man, I got scammed by a car moving company that doesn't actually do it. And I was like, I know exactly how to handle this. And
And I
so,
know how you feel.
yes. And that's what I told him. I was like, dude, this is how I got into this, is I got scammed. And so ended up doing a whole bunch of OSINT, just trying to like figure out what was happening. Ended up finding out that like the company's like DOT and MS number, like I think it's MS number, they were not legally allowed to be shipping across state lines. And so I was able to see all this, and I just kept pulling more data about them. The emails are originating from India, but the home office is quite literally a home office. It's a house in Northern California. And I was like, that's weird. And so, and unfortunately for them, some of the names matched. And I was
Oh.
like, oh, I have your aliases now. And so had fun with that. Here's what got funny about it. I gave this guy all the information. I told him like where to report it. I get an email probably 3 days after that. And it's like I post the video and it's, hey, we've seen your video from the Department of Transportation. And I'm like, what? Like I almost shat. I was like, I hope they're not mad. And turns out they were like, hey, we saw it. We think it's great. Would you mind providing all the data that you have to us? Because even if you submit it to the IC3 form on the FBI, it obviously takes a lot to get through to them. And so I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so now thankfully I have a relationship with them where it can help with that type of stuff. But it was just really funny because I was just like, oh, I am in so much trouble. And they were like, great job. And I was like, I'm not in trouble. Yeah, so it's been quite a ride. It's been really fun, but now I hunt scammers and it's been a ton of fun. It's been I love getting to mess with them. I think there have been some really funny things. Also, there's been a lot of things that have ended up being devastating when you have people come to you and they're like, "Hey, I lost this much money.
Yeah.
I lost this." And for me, thankfully, a really cool thing is I've been able to be like, don't worry, I have too. Like it happens to all of us. And it's funny because I have a lot of people that come towards me and they're like, I must have been so dumb. And I literally had someone, it was probably 2 weeks ago, that emailed me that's a PhD in psychology that was like, I got
Oh.
scammed. And I was like, what were they teaching you? Because like this is the whole thing. It's just psychology. And so but it was funny because yeah, everyone can be a victim of this. And it's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you think about it, it's because the scammers are doing this professionally. I, I think we do a disservice when we talk about hackers as, you know, 23-year-old overweight guys in hoodies in their mom's basement, coding in the dark. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that was true at one time, but that's not what that's not what's going on anymore. These are
No.
professional organizations doing hacking. These
Mhm.
are often professional organizations scamming people. They've got
Yeah.
their playbooks. They've got you're not scamming enough money out of people. They've got their
They have quotas to meet.
they've got
Yeah.
quotas. They put you on a PIP if you're not doing a good job. Hey, performance improvement plan here. If you don't start bringing in more money, we're going to fire you.
It is weird how professional some of these places are. One of the things that got shut down was a call center out of India that was essentially acting like they were PayPal. And I always say this is like, if you call PayPal and they pick up immediately, it's not PayPal. Okay, they don't have that kind of support. Actually, fake PayPal has better customer support than real PayPal.
Yeah,
But I it was crazy because I ended up calling them a couple times because what I saw is I get a whole bunch of people that submit them to me, and that's actually been my greatest boon is the community, because it's when I got three that were all the same number for fake PayPal. I was like, this is a call center. This is setup. And you can hear them in the background. They're having a full call center like your American Express, like your Visa, like any place that would have a real call center, but it's just built around scamming. And they're trying to get into my PC and things like that. And that's when you're able to like, if they're willing to reach out and touch me with theirs, I can see what
yeah,
network they're coming in on. And it's like, gotcha. But thankfully, what's funny is it's really hard to get some of those numbers shut down because a lot of it's like VoIP. And so what I did, however, because they were all using the same number to like have it come in, I just released that number on social media and they got so many calls that they shut it down. They
yeah.
shut down the number because they couldn't handle it. Yeah, it's crazy how professional these guys are. And also for a lot of it, I think that we picture them as hackers. They're not, most of them aren't hackers. Most of them don't have great tech knowledge.
Yeah.
Granted, the people that set it up tend to, but most people don't. Most of it is social engineering. It's that, hey, I can make you feel this way. I can make you think this way. I'm catching you at a bad time. Let's do this. It's all those things to get people in the mindset of this isn't a scam, and it
Yeah.
always is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's talk about a little bit about what OSINT is,
Yeah.
and maybe some of like your process, some of the tools that you use. Well, we may not discuss some of the stuff in specifics. I don't necessarily want to be giving hackers or scammers the exact things that we're doing, but conceptually, let's kind of talk about what some of these things are. So, for those that don't know, what is OSINT?
So OSINT is open source intelligence. If you think about all the stuff that you can Google, all the stuff that you can put together that's just out there, that's it. You can get more intense OSINT if you are able to like buy data. That
Yeah,
stuff is wild. I mean, if you have access to it, it's very expensive most of the time, but I mean, your phone sells way more data than you think. And if you want to, you can even craft a narrative to see like what IP addresses. I can see your like our this blew my mind recently. Apparently, our government in the US sells, except for Montana, no idea why, maybe they don't have traffic cameras, but like they sell the traffic cameras live feed. You
mm,
can go see that. And that's I know a company that has access to that. And I was like, at first I saw it and I was like, oh, you guys have pictures of it and it updates every once in a while. They're like, no, we have live stream. I was like, what? So yeah, there's a lot of open source intelligence that you can get access to if you pay the right price, or there's a lot that you can do for free.
yeah,
And a ton of that is really fun because most people don't understand what they're connecting to when they either open up a social media, when they get an app on their phone, and then you're able to pull all these things. And it's very fun. It's like a fun puzzle.
So let's talk about conceptually. Someone sends you an email saying, "Hey, I've got this great deal. I can ship your car from the East Coast to the West Coast for $712.50.
Yeah.
I know you need to move your car. Let's do this thing. How And for whatever reason you think, this seems a little off. What are some of the things that you would do to see if it is a scammer, and then try to find out more about them?
Absolutely. So, first things first is if I get the emails, and I have gotten quite a few emails, especially doing social media now, I get a ton of ads emails. And so I will send them a link. And if I'm going after someone else who emails me and is like, "Hey, I got this scammer. Can you mind like taking a peek at them?" I will email them and I will email them and I will create a victim profile.
Hmm.
So I will figure out who they're targeting and then I will figure out what I need to be, whether that's creating a new email account or using an old email account, AI generating an image. I like to become the perfect victim so they don't think too much about it. Now, once I do that, normally they're after some sort of early information just to try to figure out who you are. If it's a romance scam, they want to see a picture of you. If it's car shipping, they want to see like drop off locations. And at that point, I want to send them a link. Now, I use a very common IP grabber just to see what they are, and it brings me a lot of data just to get a good baseline. Now, if they don't end up clicking the link, you can always do an email header analyzer to see like what's going on there and probably pull that data from there, just their IP address. However, I love the IP logger because it does what device they're on, general location, IP address, local IP. I think that's great. Also, the IP logger I use, if you turn on Smart Logger, it'll tell you if it's a VPN, but most of the time you can kind of check
Yeah.
if you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Especially if the times don't match, like their computer time is like, that's
Yeah.
not real. Um, Now there's definitely times where they've had like VPNs and things like that on that'll stop a IP logger from getting an accurate snag. And in which case it depends on what you're pulling now. If you know that they're on a computer, maybe you're not going to use something that pulls GPS data. But if they are on a phone, that's always fun because even or even like services that'll put you through their servers where it's like Facebook does it, Instagram does it. Um, Skype, I just found out recently did it. Don't ask why. But they'll send you to theirs, and so it'll ping their servers, and that's not helpful.
Yeah.
But if you're able to use a certain program to pull their phone's GPS data, well, then you're in business because then it doesn't matter what their IP says they're at or what their internet says. Their phone's GPS will tell you. And yeah, so essentially, normally it's like kind of narrowing down the process. You start with the IP logger, the general information, and you keep digging until you get exactly what you want. And from there, it really depends. I've gone in a lot of different directions with it, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, so having run whatismyipaddress.com for probably longer than you've been alive. Well, maybe not quite that long. Yeah, it's interesting because like IP addresses will give you a indication, but everyone kind of has unfortunately seen way too many cop shows and
Yes.
CSI shows and FBI shows that are like, oh wait, we're pinging the IP address. Wait, they're in the U.S. Oh no. Now it's down to New York. Now it's down to this street. Oh, they
Zoom
turned
and
off.
enhance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they turned off the computer, but we know it's in this 3 block radius. Like, no,
Yeah.
that's not quite how that works.
That's not how it works at all. Yeah. I love those though, when it's just like, oh man, it's like we've all seen the net, from the 90s. This is
Yes.
like, that's not what's going on there. And none of us look like Angelina Jolie, so that's a bummer. But no, it is funny that you mentioned that because everybody does assume that like IP addresses are either this one-stop shop for everything or they
Yeah.
tell you nothing. And it's like, it's somewhere in between. Also, yeah, I mean, I think that's funny. So that's why I like certain IP loggers is when you're getting their exact time, it doesn't matter if they shut off their phone. I love that. If you've got other data you can pull and you can know what's going on at that location, you can hook up to devices and then follow that device from there. And
Mhm.
I love that. I think that's the coolest thing ever because then it's like, yeah, they can turn off their phone. Doesn't matter. I can see their history. I can see where they've been. And I guarantee you they had it on them when they went home. And that's always fun. Yeah.
Yeah. People have behaviors that they go certain places, they do certain things,
Mhm.
routines, I guess.
Yeah. And that's been so interesting to see is figuring out these type of behavior. I mean, God, one of the things that I saw in a program that I run is you can set up essentially a fence around to see like who all's devices are inside a certain area. And so you say you set it up for uh, like a base in San Diego, and then you also put a fence around the most popular brothel in Tijuana. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of going back and forth. That's like a surprising amount of like, wow, okay, that feels not nationally secure, but all right. You see a lot of funny things when all of a sudden you've got access to all this open source data. It's really fun.
I mean, there was, I remember a number of news stories that have come out over the years where the U.S. military has had to tell servicemen, you can't use fitness tracking apps, you can't use fitness watches because that's feeding data into systems, and they can, you track back GPS coordinates, you track back enough soldiers running around a base
Yep.
in a war zone, and you know the exact boundaries of that base where the fence lines are because you see where all the soldiers are running.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, what about the Russian Submariner captain that was recently he was assassinated? And it was exactly that. He would go on a run and his data got uploaded. And plus he would post it because it was like a jogging fitness app. And
Yeah.
it was either the day before or the day after, the official account from the Ukrainian intelligence agency liked it. And it's like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding?
Yes,
Um,
when your adversary likes your post talking about your running routine.
Stop running. It's
Yeah.
bad for your health, weirdly enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
that's so cool.
I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that we do that we just we don't think about the fact that it's public and what it really says about us. That when we post our running routines, we're excited about the fact, hey, I ran 10 miles today.
Mhm.
Not with the realization that when you post that, even if you're just posting a screen picture of your run, well, your
Mhm.
home is probably somewhere on that line. Even if I can't see where you started and stopped, I now know somewhere along the line that is your home. And if you post 5 different routes, there's only going to be one point of overlap.
Yeah, no kidding. There's only one spot that you come back to. And it is funny. We don't think about it regularly. I was doing this is just thankfully this ended hilariously, but I was in West Virginia going to a wedding because occasionally I will just like be people's plus one if they need me to. So I've gone to more strangers' weddings than I could even count. I've been invited to over like 5,000 weddings. It's insane. But I was in West Virginia. I just driven out there and I was just sitting waiting to like go to the wedding. I was in my suit and I was sitting outside of CVS just on a live, just talking to people because I was getting ready and taking some time. And somebody found me. Somebody who was a fan of my content ended up finding like where I was because they're like, oh, we know where that is. And they didn't say that in the chat, but then they ended
Yeah.
up showing up and they like knocked on the window. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was, and thankfully they were very sweet. They were very nice, but they saw the background of a live video and were able to pull where I was. I mean, you just don't think about it, but yeah, I mean, if that person didn't like me, that would have been bad. That would have been
Yeah.
very bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw someone do the same thing. A little video feed on their LinkedIn account where someone had sent in a I'm wondering, I want to show my kids why it's not safe to be posting stuff online. Hey, so and so, can you tell me where I am? And it was like a 30-second video of her in a parking lot.
Uh-huh.
And this guy was able to geolocate, be able to say, okay, well, I see a water tower in the distance there. I see like a CVS there, and I see a fast food restaurant there. Okay, let me run some API searches against geospatial stuff. Where's there? Where? I think she's got a southern accent. Okay, so where in the South are there a water tower, a CVS, and this particular fast food restaurant all within, within a kilometer of each other? And he was able to narrow it down to, okay, Google Street Map at some point. Okay, she was standing in this grassy area between these two parking spots.
Oh gosh, those guys, those like geo guys, the geo guesser guys too. I mean, they're just
That's who
it's
he was one of the
yeah,
GeoGuessr
geo guesser
guys.
guys.
Yeah.
They're so impressive. I mean, oh my gosh, and it really is something to keep in mind. Is like you're never alone, and you are never anonymous anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so now that we've utterly freaked everybody out
yeah. Sorry,
about
guys,
what
my
people can
bad.
find about them, um, what are you looking for? Like, what are you telling people if they're corresponding with someone? Uh, how do you not how do you identify the individual scammer, but what are the characteristics of the correspondence, the communication that you would say, hey, yeah, I think you're talking to a scammer?
I mean, for me, my best thing is I always like to catch them in a lie. I think that that's a good sign. Is like, and even if you don't think they're a scammer after that, I mean, they're definitely lying to you. So you don't want to continue working with that person. And so I normally like ping their stuff. I try to find a general location of where they're at. If I'm feeling extra fun, I'll use a program to flip their GPS so that I can know where they're standing currently. And then after that, I will say, hey, just curious, like, where's your company located? Where you do business? All this stuff. And then they'll lie, and then I will send them the information I have and go, no, you're not. And I always think that that's I've gotten some fun responses from that. They don't love that, but it is funny to me because that's a great way to test is just are they lying to you?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, pinging their like doing a simple IP logger is a great way to start. And I feel like anybody can do that. It's just you're putting in a link, you're making them click a link. If you're doing like email header analyzing, that can get a little more complex, but you can still Google it and figure it out. It
Yeah.
is more complex though. But
And unfortunately, not nearly as good as it used to be.
no, it's not. And especially, it's not that hard for people to make it like send it to just a Google
Yeah.
like server, things like that. Um, yeah, unfortunately, it really isn't as good as it used to be. But I have had some luck with it. And
Yeah.
honestly, there's a guy that I work with pretty regularly who I don't know how he does it, but he is like the god of figuring out where emails came from. And I'm like, okay, man, that's cool. That's great. Thanks for the information. I pinged him and it worked, but yours was way cooler. But yeah, so I think it's always test if they're lying to you. Also, I mean, bad grammar. I know it sounds weird, but like sometimes a lot of scammers will do bad English and bad grammar because they're trying to get people who don't think too much about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's actually a strategy that they'll lean into sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that. It's like we're trying to weed out the people that are more suspicious.
Yep.
And if we use a little bit of bad grammar, the people that are suspicious that we think are really going to challenge us, they're going to see that and they're going to go away. And the people that are more forgiving of the bad grammar are more of our target, our perceived target audience.
And what sucks about that is what I've seen is it's like they end up targeting a lot of immigrants, especially in the
Yeah.
US, is because they won't see it that way because that's not their first language. And that always bothers me is I'm like, really? You're targeting someone who was like, especially when it's like refugees or people that are fleeing. I've gotten that
Yeah.
from people where I'm like, dude, really? So that drives me crazy. But yeah, bad grammar is going on. Also, if you're at a company, always look out for Google saying it. This is coming from outside your organization. If they're
Yeah.
claiming to be in your organization and they're coming from outside, don't trust them. That is a huge thing. And honestly, good on Google for doing that. I've seen it in Gmail. I've seen it in other things. It's super important. Do not ignore those. Also, if it says in big, huge letters, phishing attempt, do
Yes.
not do. Probably don't do that, I would say. Yeah.
Well, and then anything that is financial in nature,
Yes. Financial and
like
speed.
always double, like you and I were talking beforehand, and I won't tell the story on the podcast because I don't have permission to tell it. But like it's all like what I was telling them was you always verify when there's a request to change financial data. Always verify it via a different communication method. So if
Mhm.
they emailed you, hey, can you change my bank account number? You call them. If they called you, you email them. If they text messaged you, you email them back, just so in case something, they got SIM swapped, their email got compromised,
Yeah.
you see them in person, like you just always assume when someone's wanting to change financial information, it's a scam, and
Yeah.
just trust but verify.
Absolutely. I think, in kind of what you're saying, two-factor is super important. Have it on everything and also do it regularly yourself. If it
Yeah.
doesn't require it, just do it because yeah, you never know when someone will clone something that looks right. I've seen people that have started using like either Greek or Russian letters to like on emails that look very normal, but they've just hidden certain letters that are
Yeah.
slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get a Cyrillic letter that looks almost exactly like it, register that as a domain name. It looks like a commonly used domain name, and so you don't think about it. Yeah.
Yep, don't think about it twice. And it's like, nope, don't do that. Yeah, always run things through. I also do like if anybody sends you a link, I always run it through like Google Transparency Checker. Even if I'm running on a different system, I'm just like, I don't want to take the risk of someone getting a hold of that type of stuff, you
Yeah.
know? Nah.
So are you a big fan of using VPNs yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always run a VPN. I feel like it's just a good first step. From what I've been told, and what I think makes sense is the best VPNs are the ones you build yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not sponsored by any VPNs, so and I honestly think that like a lot of VPNs do very similar things. There's some that have cooler features, I will say,
Yeah.
but I think I think just having a VPN is a great start to protect yourself. I think that it can't stop you from doing like from sending information, but it can help them not be able to trace exactly where you are. I also think, and I'm looking into figuring out like which company I want to work with for this. If you can also do it by yourself, it just takes way more time.
Yeah.
Is removing your data off the internet.
Yep.
Whether it be like True People Search or White Pages. I mean, you are. I had a buddy recently who's also a content creator. He's fairly large, and he was like, "Hey man, I just got a call and they confirmed my name and address. What happened, and like what's this number?" So I checked the number, it's not real, and then I checked the and then I checked, I was just searching for him, and I was like, gotcha. And it was True People Finder, and it was like his name, his phone number, his address, and I was like, dude, you got to pull this down now.
Yeah.
Because like you are in the public eye. And so for creators, I can't recommend it enough, but honestly for anybody, because people do web scraping, pull any of that data, and then they seem to know you. They seem to
Yeah.
be able to confirm, oh, you live here. That's great. We're just calling from this company here. And it's just, ooh, yeah.
Or it's, hey, we went to the same high school. Like I cringe when I see people putting, hey, I went to high school here. It's like,
Mm.
oh, okay. Now someone comes, it's 20 years later. Hey, I'm Bob. We went to high school together. I don't remember Bob, but you
We
know,
might have, my
maybe
favorite,
there was a Bob. I don't want to be rude and say I don't know who you are.
exactly.
You just assume that they're telling the truth, and you just don't remember who Bob was. And maybe they even mention, oh, well, hey, don't, you used to know someone else there who they figured out because of your connections on social media, and then you're like, oh well, I guess if they know that person also, I must have known who they were,
Yep.
and then our guard goes down.
Yep, and the scam keeps like it's able to just kind of perpetuate itself. And I've actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. I've done that for trying to like get at Facebook scammers, where I have like friended people they friend so that it makes it look better that way. And that's what scammers do, you
Yeah.
know? I also think one of my favorite examples of exactly what you just said is it was 2012. I was very young at the time, but I was getting breached by the cybersecurity director of the NSA. And he was like, just to let you know, please don't put where you work on social media. We've got over 300 people that put they work at the NSA on their Facebook. And he was so pissed off. And I was like, I get it, man. That seems so annoying. Can you imagine you work for the government and the NSA and you were like, oh, I should put this out there. Oh,
But a lot of scammers do that. They say they work for Microsoft. They say they work for LinkedIn, and people just like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, all right, yeah. And it's, oh man, the LinkedIn stuff is crazy too. People forget, people don't think of LinkedIn as like a social media. Feels like that, and I don't know why, because it is. And then you can pull so much data, and it is so impressive and also scary the way people can infiltrate a company. Oh, I'm this person, and these people work underneath me. They won't question if I become this person.
Yeah.
And it's and plus, if that person is say a CEO or someone who has like an outward facing personality, they can just copy different types of text and then find the way that they speak. And that's been mind blowing recently to see that.
Yeah, I mean, CEOs of even, small companies, there's photos out there of them, easy enough to grab it, throw it on the profile, claim to be the CEO of that company, and you look and feel like them. You register a domain name that looks similar to their company name. People
Mm.
don't pay attention. But I've also started getting a lot of on LinkedIn. I guess they're not friend requests, but they're network connections of
Uh-huh.
things that are like, okay, this is not a, you have your normal, uh hey, I do SEO, I'm a link builder, I have a podcast, so hey, I do podcast promotion, I build websites, outsource
Yeah.
stuff. Like there's the random noise of
Mm.
lead gen people,
Yeah.
the kind of the random joys, the low end, we can help your business by making something really cheap, and whether they're legit or not, kind of irrelevant. But there's that noise, and there's the people that you that are posting, that that they're in the same industry as you, And then my wife and I both have started to get connection requests from, uh, uh, they're always from younger people. My wife always gets them from men. I always get them from women who are
Uh,
like, "Hey, you look like an interesting person with an interesting background. I'd like to connect and get to know you better." And it's like, okay, no legitimate. I've never received a legitimate network connection request like this. This seems a little odd. And they're like, you look at their work history, it just seems,
Fabricated.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know how to say well, it's because no one at that age would have this job. There's just this kind of odd mix of things on their history that you wouldn't think a normal person would have.
Almost mechanical, like to a
Yeah.
degree, and especially the way that they talk. And it's funny because obviously, my background is insane if you look at like my job history, but it's almost too far in that direction where you're like, I think he's real. I just think he might need help. Like to be honest. So, no, it's funny. You do get things like that, and especially when they're trying to connect you, where it's like, oh, I just think you might be nice. It's like, oh, that's a scam. That's a
Yeah.
romance scam. They're trying to
Yeah,
like,
it's a pig butchering scam. It's a crypto investment scam.
oh,
There's something going on there. I can never get the account, never connect with them long enough, and have the account stay active long enough to figure out what the angle is. They usually they get
taken down pretty quick.
they get taken down pretty quick. So they're clearly doing this to lots of people. But I assume it's some crypto pig butchering scam.
So much crypto, man. I made a video at one point where it was just like, just please stop. Like this is always my go-to is like, if you're paying for something and it feels like a weird way to pay for something, stop.
Yeah.
It's not. And crypto is a huge one for that.
I,
It's yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been getting a lot of
Gift
um,
cards too. Yeah.
yeah, gift card stuff. People in countries where crypto is banned,
Hmm.
working it's there's lots of governments that are like, hey, we if you do crypto, we're not helping you, and so they're like, well, I'm working with this third party person that's helping me set up an account at Binance, or I'm using their platform. Look at the domain
Yep.
name. It was registered last week, yet they claim to have been in business for 20 years. And it's like, oh well, I always tell people, if you've been a victim of a crime, you need to report it to your local law enforcement. But then it's like, well, I can't report it because crypto's illegal here. And so, like, these are people that are specifically being targeted because they can't report the crime.
Yep. Oh, that's true. I wonder if there's like I wonder if Interpol has an agency for that where they could report it that way.
Yeah, probably.
Because in that case, you almost want something that's bigger that can do it. Because that was actually one of the first scams I worked on was they reached out to me and they were like, can you do ads for this like crypto thing? And I was like, it's called qliathon.com, which it's funny that they had lie in the name. But I was like, and so I made these, they don't speak English at all. And so I immediately pinged where they are. They were out of China, and I was, and I would make these ads, it would just be talking mad game about this, like it's a lie, it's a scam, it's a fake the whole time. And they were like, looks great. And it's like, you don't speak English. This isn't fair.
Oh,
And so I would put fake, what's it called? I would put fake captions after that because they would ask for captions that were like, it is great, it does this. But the entire time, I'm just telling my audience, do not fall for this. This is a lie. And especially, I also say, like, Bernie Madoff, I want to say it was like 18 to 20% is what he was promising people.
yeah.
If you see anybody promising you over that, you're out of your mind. Like they will never be able to get you that money. The Q-Lython was 6% a day. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
But the reality is why that work. I think there's two reasons why that worked. People are desperate,
Desperation. Yep.
and everybody always has some friend who's made a crazy amount of money in crypto.
Yep.
So it's just like, well, this is just the way that I can get that crazy return. But I tell
Mm-hmm.
them, hey, look, if you're getting more than a money market account, if you're getting more than 8% annually, you need to
Mm-hmm.
question it. Like there's
Yeah.
something strange going on, and if you don't understand what you're investing in, you need to work from the assumption of, can I afford to lose 100% of my investment?
Yes. Yeah. And it feels like people don't realize that it can all go away. It's not like you'll lose some, you'll lose everything. And it's funny because I totally know that we all know that guy that got paid out really big in crypto. It's like, yeah, the start of a Ponzi scheme always gets paid out.
Yep.
You know what
Yep.
I mean? Like those guys will always make money because then more gets invested. But once it all collapses, it's
And
game.
then everybody else loses a ridiculous amount of money. So I
Yeah.
was curious. So I want to take a step back. You talked about using like IP logger, one of those tools.
Mhm.
How do you trick the person into clicking on the link? Because IP logger will give you a couple different domain names, but to me, it's like, well, this is clearly not a link that anyone should be clicking on themselves. Why would anyone click on this suspicious link? Eh, Particularly a scammer. So what are you doing to get them to click on the link?
I rename the links. Because yeah, no, you're right. It always comes from like these super sketchy.coms where you're
Yeah.
like, don't click the, it's pretty much like don't click this.com. So what I'll do is you can either run it through, if you want to do a simple version, you can run it through like a shortener,
Yeah.
or you can put it through an email and then you can, like essentially attach the link to different words. Um, uh, and that's been really cool. Also, if you want to do email and or for like photos and things like that, I mean, you can use like pixel tracking or spy pixels.
Yeah.
Those are always cool. But yeah, I prefer the logger because it's just so simple and it just works so easy. And yeah, you just rename it to something that they're looking for because they'll always ask you for something. And then you have to, now sometimes they won't click on the link. Don't get me wrong. A lot of times that happens. And they'll be like, oh, I can't click on links or things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I can't upload it because storage on my phone is full.
Yeah.
I don't have access to this. They ask for a driver's license. I don't drive. I have really bad vision. Like you're always messing with them to be able to eventually get them back. For instance, I was working with some Instagram, they were scam busters. They what they do is if you've been scammed, they'll get you your money back, which
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah, recovery. There is, I know of two legitimate recovery companies, and they only work with with high net worth individuals who've lost millions of dollars. Like
oh my gosh.
like and their claim is not, well, it's a legitimate company, but it's like, look, we're the amount of work that we're going to have to put in to get some of your money back.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. It's going to cost them $100,000 in man hours to get $250,000 back.
Yeah.
But these
It's
are, these are big enough transactions that they're easy enough they're easier to trace and figure out where they're going. But like if you've lost, $4,000 on crypto, no one's going to help you recover that.
no, and that's the thing is people don't think that. And then it's funny because I'll trace all these things back and they are in the same places that the original scam is
Yeah.
happening.
Yep.
They're creating a secondary market for themselves. And I'm like, there's like great business, but you guys are horrible. Like
Yeah.
this is and so I was pinging them recently because they had like so it's funny. They commented on one of my TikToks and they had said, and I was like, game on. They were like, hey, this person on Instagram can help you if you lost money. And I was like,
Yeah.
I commented, I was like, well, that's definitely a scam. And but then I reached out on my fake Instagram and I was like, oh my gosh, can you really get my money back? And they're like, oh yeah, we definitely can. And so I hit up two of them, pinged them. They're actually down the street from each other, which I think is very funny.
It's the same guy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I get that.
so
Any
fun.
content that I post that has the word crypto in the transcript, I'm playing whack-a-mole with the comments of, hey, so and so on Instagram, so and so on X, or so and so on TikTok. They helped me get, I lost so much money. They helped me get it all back, and they didn't charge me anything.
This 100K mentor can bring me this much money. I'm so thankful to insert tag
Yeah,
here. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And the getting the money back, yeah. So those scammers, I'm actually getting ready to make a video on that because I can take the comment and reply to it and go, no, you can't. And then show the evidence I have that they're fraudulent. And I think that's fun. But
oh,
yeah, those guys bother me the most too, because it's like you're going after people that have already been scammed. And that's the thing is when I have people submit or when I help people, and I've had many people offer to pay me, I'm like, I don't accept money. That's not why I'm doing this. You've already lost money. You
yeah.
don't need to be charged more. If a business wants to do an ad with me, I will do that because then we both mutually benefit. You already lost something. I'm not trying to take money from you.
Yeah.
That's not my thing at all.
Yeah, anyone who wants you to pay for recovery in advance is a scam. And anyone who says, "Hey, I recovered your money, now just pay me my fee." It's like, "No, take my fee out of what you recovered and send the difference to me."
That is, oh my gosh, you hit on everything. And that's across so many different scams. Oh, we'll give you this money if you pay this. We'll do this if you pay this. We'll do this if you pay this. Just take the money out of it. And if they won't do that, it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, you accidentally sent me a whole bunch of money. Just contact your bank and reverse the bank transaction.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. Yeah, not a problem.
Easy works.
You,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
you accidentally charged too much on my credit card. Oh, just reverse the charge. Oh, you refunded me too much. Oh, just reverse the charge. You can do it from your end.
Yep. It's easy.
No sense
Also,
for
by the
me
way,
to do it from my end. Crazy. So before we wrap up here, because I've been monopolizing all sorts of your time today,
it's been wonderful
any
though.
parting advice, and then after any parting advice for people?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, if you haven't seen them in person, do not do this. One of the main things that I get, and I feel like a lot of the times it targets guys specifically, and I get probably 5 to 10 of these a day. Do not send naked pictures to
Yeah.
someone you don't know. In fact, honestly, period.
Don't send
Like,
it to just
so
don't send pictures like that. Period.
yeah, and I'm not looking, and like there's the thing some people get like up against, and they're like, hey, you're judging people. It's like, I'm not judging anybody. I know that we're all out here like trying to find love and things like that, but also like this is really incredibly dangerous and they never go away. Like they are always out, and say they download it to the cloud. Well, then someone has access to the cloud. Do
Yep.
you trust the person you're sending it to for them not to get hacked? Because they can. And it's just
Well,
don't do it.
and
Yeah.
that has happened. There are a number of celebrities who have done this. That someone has figured out their iCloud password
Hmm.
and logged into their iCloud account and downloaded all their picture history.
Yep.
You
And
know,
it's just, yeah.
neither of those two people intentionally released it or did anything malicious, but someone else was able to find it.
Yeah. And there's the thing, sometimes it's not even like they might not even get into your iCloud. They might get into Apple, and they might get access through there. So do you really? I just think that if you don't want everybody in the world to see it, do not take a picture of it. Do not post it. Like, do not, yeah. And unfortunately, it happens so frequently. And
Yeah.
I get so many dudes that are so stressed out. And I'm like, first off, like they're threatening to send it. It's always sextortion. They're
Yeah.
always like, pay us money. And that never ends. They will never pay them because
Yeah.
they will keep asking forever. Report it to your FBI, report it to your local police. If you're a minor, definitely do that. They're going to take that real seriously. I had a mom reach out to me recently who was like, yeah, my 12-year-old son is going through this right now. I'm like,
Oh,
oh my God. And it's just like, it's just the worst. It's just, so don't let yourself become a victim of that. If you want to show someone yourself naked, be in person. Like that's the rule. That's just the whole. Yeah, it's that one always bums me out because I'm just like, guys, come on, like don't do that. And it's such a touchy subject, and
yeah.
it's yeah, that one's a huge one. Yeah.
And how can people find you on social media?
I am Youth Pastor Ryan at yeah, which is it still is. It's a Youth Pastor Ryan on TikTok, and YouTube. I'm getting ready to start uploading longer scam bus videos because those are fun, to be honest. Especially the calls. My God, I have annoyed them so much. And then on Instagram, I'm Ryan Kelly Comedy. And it's youthpastorryan.com if you want links to everything, if you want to come see shows. I am a professional stand-up comedian. That actually is what I do for a living. And this is just my weird side hustle. So keep that in mind.
Side hustles are awesome.
Right? They keep it fun. They keep life entertaining.
That they do. So we'll make sure to link to all those in the show notes. So for the listeners, you don't have to figure out how to spell Youth Pastor Ryan. You don't have to figure out URLs with funny characters in it. We'll insert those for you, and that way we can track every click. I mean, no, we won't do that.
Yeah. Wait, we won't do that. Yeah, if you guys
Right.
wouldn't mind clicking on my website, IP Logger, that would be fantastic. No, that's,
Yeah, yeah. So my website's called IP Logger. I bought. It was something I did when I was a kid.
yeah, it was weird.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Chris, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for what you do. I appreciate you getting information out there to people about all this crazy stuff because it's changing by the day.
It is. It is. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a great one.